Hotel staff looked at Sammy Davis Jr. and said he couldn't play their $30,000 lobby piano because it was too advanced for your level. What happened when he finally got his hands on those keys left everyone speechless. It was a Tuesday evening in September 1964, and Sammy Davis Jr. had just finished a grueling 3-week tour across the Midwest. He was exhausted, travel-worn, and looking forward to a quiet night at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel in Chicago before flying back to Los Angeles the next morning. Sammy was traveling alone that evening, without his usual entourage of managers, publicists, and assistants. He'd deliberately chosen to dress down for the flight: simple slacks, a plain shirt, and a comfortable jacket. No flashy jewelry, no expensive accessories, nothing that would draw attention or signal his celebrity status. As he walked through the opulent lobby of the Grand Metropolitan, Sammy was struck by the hotel's understated elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over marble floors, and expensive artwork adorned the walls. But what caught his attention most was the stunning Steinway grand piano, positioned in the center of the lobby, its black lacquer surface gleaming under the soft lighting. Sammy had always been drawn to pianos. Even when he was primarily known for his singing and dancing, the piano remained his first love, the instrument where he could express his deepest musical thoughts. Seeing this beautiful instrument sitting unused in the lobby, he felt an almost magnetic pull toward it. The lobby was relatively quiet at this hour. A few guests sat in the plush seating areas, reading newspapers or having quiet conversations over drinks. The piano bench was empty, and the keyboard cover was closed, suggesting that the instrument was more for show than for actual use. Sammy approached the piano and gently lifted the keyboard cover, revealing the pristine ivory and ebony keys. He was about to sit down when a voice behind him made him freeze. "Excuse me, sir, but I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the piano." Sammy turned around to see a well-dressed hotel employee, probably in his 40s, wearing an expensive suit and an expression of polite but firm authority. His name tag read, "Richard Morrison, Guest Services Manager." "I'm sorry?" Sammy said, genuinely confused. Morrison stepped closer, his tone remaining professionally courteous but unmistakably condescending. "That's a very expensive instrument, sir. A 1962 Steinway Model D, worth about $30,000. It requires a certain level of expertise to operate properly." Sammy raised an eyebrow. "I was just going to play a few notes. I'll be very careful." Morrison's smile was patronizing. "I appreciate your interest, sir, but that piano is really too advanced for your level. We've had issues in the past with guests who didn't understand the delicate nature of such an instrument. Perhaps you could enjoy the music from one of our lounge areas instead." The implication was clear, though Morrison was careful not to say it directly. Looking at Sammy's casual clothes and making assumptions about his background, the manager had decided that this guest couldn't possibly have the skill or refinement necessary to handle such an expensive piano. "Too advanced for my level?" Sammy repeated quietly, more amused than angry. "It's nothing personal," Morrison continued. "But professional-grade instruments like this require professional-level training. I'm sure you understand." Sammy looked around the lobby. A few other guests had noticed the interaction, and some were watching with mild curiosity. None of them seemed to recognize him, which wasn't entirely surprising given his casual attire and the fact that he wasn't performing or in his usual entertainment context. "What if I told you I have professional-level training?" Sammy asked. Morrison's smile became even more condescending. "Sir, with all due respect, I've been in the hospitality business for 15 years. I can usually tell when someone has the kind of background necessary for an instrument of this caliber." The message was unmistakable. Morrison had looked at Sammy, a casually dressed black man, and made an immediate judgment about his musical abilities and social status. "I see," Sammy said calmly. "And what exactly do you think my level is?" Morrison seemed pleased that Sammy was asking, as if it gave him an opportunity to be helpful rather than discriminatory. "Well, if you're interested in music, I'd be happy to direct you to some excellent jazz clubs in the area. There are several establishments that might be more suitable to your musical interests." The racial undertone was becoming more obvious. Morrison wasn't just protecting an expensive piano, he was making assumptions about what kind of music Sammy would play and where he belonged. "Jazz clubs," Sammy repeated. "Because you think that's the only kind of music someone like me would understand?" Morrison began to look uncomfortable, realizing that his implications were becoming too obvious. "I didn't say that, sir. I'm just trying to protect your piano from someone you've decided isn't qualified to touch it," Sammy finished. At that moment, a well-dressed couple walking through the lobby suddenly stopped and stared at Sammy. The woman whispered something to her husband, and his eyes widened in recognition. "Oh my goodness," the woman said, approaching hesitantly. Are you Sammy Davis Jr.?" Morrison looked confused, glancing between Sammy and the approaching couple. "Yes, ma'am," Sammy replied with his characteristic warm smile. "How are you this evening?" "We saw you perform in Las Vegas last month," the woman exclaimed. "You were absolutely incredible. That piano performance during The Way You Look Tonight was just magical." Morrison's face had gone pale. The casual guest he'd been condescending to for the past 10 minutes was one of the most famous entertainers in America, known internationally for his musical versatility and piano skills. "Mr. Davis," Morrison stammered, "I had no idea. I didn't recognize—" "Recognize what?" Sammy asked pleasantly. "A professional musician?" More guests were beginning to notice the commotion. Word was spreading quickly through the lobby that Sammy Davis Jr. was standing by the piano, and people were gathering to see what would happen. An elderly gentleman approached and said, "Mr. Davis, I've been a fan since your days with your father and Will Maston. Would you honor us with a song?" Morrison was now sweating visibly. "Mr. Davis, please, I sincerely apologize. I had no idea who you were. If you'd like to use the piano—" "Now the piano isn't too advanced for my level?" Sammy asked. "Of course not, sir. Please, by all means, we'd be honored to have you play." Sammy looked at the gathering crowd of hotel guests, then at the beautiful Steinway, then back at Morrison. "Well, since you've determined that I might have the necessary qualifications after all," he sat down at the piano bench and gently placed his fingers on the keys. The crowd had grown to about 20 people, all watching expectantly. Sammy began with something unexpected, not a jazz standard or a popular song, but Chopin's Prelude in E minor, one of the most technically demanding pieces in classical piano literature. His fingers moved across the keys with the precision and artistry of a concert pianist, each note crystal clear and perfectly placed. The lobby fell completely silent, except for the haunting melody flowing from the Steinway. Guests who had been having conversations stopped talking. Hotel staff members emerged from behind desks and counters to listen. Morrison stood frozen, realizing that he wasn't just listening to a famous entertainer playing piano. He was witnessing a master musician performing a piece that required years of classical training and natural talent that couldn't be taught. After completing the Chopin Prelude, Sammy seamlessly transitioned into Autumn Leaves, arranging the jazz standard for solo piano with a complexity and sophistication that showcased both his classical training and his intuitive understanding of jazz harmony. The gathered audience was mesmerized. Some were taking pictures, others were simply standing in stunned silence, watching one of the world's great entertainers transform the hotel lobby into an intimate concert hall. For his final piece, Sammy played The Way You Look Tonight, the song the couple had mentioned. But this wasn't the version people knew from his recordings. This was a completely reimagined interpretation, incorporating elements of classical technique, jazz improvisation, and popular melody into something entirely new and beautiful. When he finished, the lobby erupted in applause. Guests were calling out, "Bravo!" and "Encore!" Morrison looked like he wanted to disappear into the marble floor. Sammy stood up from the piano bench and turned to Morrison with a gentle smile. "How was that level of expertise for your $30,000 piano?" Morrison was speechless for a moment before managing to say, "Mr. Davis, I cannot apologize enough. My behavior was completely inexcusable." "What exactly are you apologizing for? Sammy asked. Morrison struggled to find the right words. For misjudging your abilities, for not recognizing your talent, for assuming that because of how I looked and dressed, I couldn't possibly have the skill or refinement to play your piano, Sammy suggested. Yes, Morrison admitted quietly. That's exactly what I did, and it was wrong, Sammy nodded. Richard. Can I call you Richard? I appreciate your honesty, but I want you to think about something. What if I hadn't been Sammy Davis Jr.? What if I had been just another guest who happened to love music and wanted to play piano? Would that person have deserved the treatment you gave me? Morrison considered the question seriously. No, they wouldn't have. The piano doesn't care who plays it, Sammy continued. It only cares about the love and skill of the person touching the keys. Music doesn't discriminate. People do. An elderly black gentleman who had been watching from across the lobby approached. Son, he said to Morrison, I've been playing piano for 60 years. I could probably play that Steinway just fine, even in my work clothes. But you would never have let me near it, would you? Morrison looked ashamed. Probably not, and that would have been wrong. Sammy put his hand on Morrison's shoulder. The good news is that you can learn from this. Every guest who walks into this lobby deserves the same respect and opportunity. You never know who might surprise you. From that night forward, the Grand Metropolitan Hotel changed its policy regarding the lobby piano. Instead of restricting access based on staff assumptions, they posted a small, elegant sign that read, "This piano is available for the enjoyment of all our guests. Please feel free to share your musical talents with fellow visitors." Morrison himself became one of the hotel's most effective advocates for treating every guest with equal respect, regardless of appearance or perceived social status. He would often tell new employees the story of the night he almost prevented Sammy Davis Jr. from playing piano because he assumed the man wasn't qualified. Word of the incident spread through the hospitality industry, and the Grand Metropolitan became known as a hotel that truly welcomed all guests. Ironically, their reputation for inclusivity and respect actually attracted more high-profile clientele, including many famous musicians who specifically chose to stay there because they knew they'd be treated with dignity regardless of how they dressed. Years later, Morrison would say, "That night taught me that prejudice isn't just morally wrong, it's stupid. I almost prevented one of the world's great entertainers from sharing his gift with our guests because I made assumptions based on appearance. How many other talented people have I overlooked because I judged them too quickly?" The story became part of hospitality industry training programs, used to teach staff about the importance of treating every guest with respect and avoiding assumptions based on appearance or social stereotypes. Sammy would later say in interviews, "I've faced discrimination in many forms throughout my career, but that night taught me something important. When people see past their prejudices, when they recognize their mistakes and commit to doing better, that's when real change happens." Richard Morrison became one of my greatest advocates for equal treatment in the hospitality industry. Today, the Grand Metropolitan Hotel still displays a small plaque near their lobby piano that reads, "Music belongs to everyone. September 1964. Staff members tell new employees about the night when judging a guest by his appearance almost cost them the privilege of hosting one of entertainment history's most memorable impromptu concerts. If this incredible story of assumptions challenged, prejudice overcome, and the moment when musical mastery proved that talent transcends appearance moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that we should never judge people's abilities by how they look. Have you ever been underestimated because of your appearance, or have you made assumptions about someone that proved wrong? Let us know in the comments about times when first impressions were completely off the mark, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing true stories about breaking barriers and proving that excellence comes in all packages.